Okay, we are live on YouTube.
Just got the notification.
Two-minute warning, everyone.
We're one commissioner short.
I know alternate Commissioner Rush is probably going to cut it very tight in getting to this meeting.
We're missing Commissioner Farardite.
Want to give her a call? Andrea, any luck finding Commissioner Farrar Dyke?
She'll be joining us momentarily, but you can start.
Thank you. I'll wait another minute or so and then I'll start.
Okay. She's joined us.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I hereby call this remote meeting of the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission to order. This meeting is being recorded as well as streamed live for the public. So to make this meeting as accessible as possible, closed captioning is also available. If you are on Zoom, please click the closed captioning button to turn the caption on or off. And let me see if we have a quorum. Ms. Foltz, do we have a quorum today?
Thank you, Chairman Hart. Because we are meeting remotely, I will call the roll to make sure that we have a quorum, that the minutes accurately reflect today's participants, and that we account for all alternates in the event any commissioner has connectivity issues. So to attendees, when I call your name, please answer with present. Commissioner Hart,
Present?
Commissioner Bob,
Present.
Commissioner Contestable,
Present.
Commissioner Farrar Dyke,
Present.
Commissioner Hull,
Present.
alternate Commissioner Rush. And I believe he indicated he would be attending, so we will acknowledge him when he arrives. Alternate Commissioner Al-Khatib,
Present.
thank you, and alternate Commissioner Wassmer.
Here.
Thank you all very much. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Foltz. We will start today with our safety message from the WMSC Safety Officer, Mr. Richard David. Mr. David?
Thank you, Commissioner Hart. This is National Preparedness Month. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security recognizes each September as National Preparedness Month to promote family and community disaster planning. The impacts of emergencies and disasters are unpredictable, and they can clearly leave us more than just a little inconvenienced. Needless to say, our nation is facing challenges. And in this new normal, plans you've made a few years ago may need some updates. Who would have thought that in the spring of 2020, we might have trouble finding a loaf of bread, a glass of milk, or even toilet paper on the grocery store shelves? Make a plan. Remember, there's no cookie cutter, one size fit all for every family, for every event. These are just recommendations and guidelines that will help you identify the things to consider when making a plan. Ask yourself, who is your plan for? Adults, children, elderly, or even your pets? What are your survival needs? Food, shelter, water, communications, a source of light or heat, basic first aid, or medicines. Consider having cash on hand as a part of an emergency financial first aid kit in case power goes down or ATM goes down for extended period. Consider plans for situations that require shelter in place, as well as those that could require an evacuation. Agree on a primary family meeting place and backups, and know your exit strategies from your home or on the road. Have at least one in case of emergency contact in your home, and identify out-of-town contacts for your family members in case you're separated and your communication goes down? How will you receive alerts? Do you have a radio with batteries? When it comes to food, preparation means non-perishable, easy to prepare food, and 1 gallon of water per person per day. Ensure your medicines are able to be properly stored and administered. And in this ongoing public health emergency, make sure that you have face coverings to protect yourself and others you might come in contact with. The safety steps you need to take to protect yourself and others from the virus that's caused COVID-19 are still needed and will be for a while. Those steps are required whether it's an emergency or not. Right now, consider community training classes or CPR or basic first aid. Citizen corps like Community Emergency Response Team or CERTS. Know your home's water, gas, and electric shutoffs, but only use those if it's safe to do so. As things transition into recovery phase, do your part to help your family, your neighbors, and the broader community. Planning ahead for all of this includes planning your travel and your alternatives every day. As you travel, including on Metro Rail, always let someone know your travel plans and have backup route options. Always stay aware of your surroundings, and if you see something, say something. In the event of an incident, always follow the direction of trained personnel and listen to the announcements. The staff at WMSC, like myself, are very passionate about everyone's safety. So please always have a plan and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David, for that very comprehensive safety message. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of our August 4th, 2020 meeting. Commissioner Farrar Dyke, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. The minutes were posted for your review. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, I make approval of the August 4th minutes as circulated. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Bob has seconded the motion. I will ask our General Counsel, Allison Foltz, to conduct the roll call vote.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Hart,
Approve.
Commissioner Bob,
Approved.
Commissioner Contestable,
Approve.
Commissioner Farrar Dyke,
Approved.
Commissioner Hull,
Approved.
and has alternate Commissioner Rush joined us? He has not, however, we have a quorum and sufficient vote. Thank you.
The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Farrar Dyke. Next item on the agenda is public comments. We provide an opportunity for public comments at each of our meetings, and we will now ask if any members of the public who have joined our Zoom webinar would like to speak. If you would, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and our staff will unmute one person at a time. Each person will have a maximum of 2 minutes. I will pause now briefly to see if we have any public comments. I would also remind everyone, including those of you watching on YouTube, that you can always report any concerns through our website, WMSC.gov, through our social media channels like Twitter, Instagram, and feedback, or by email. Ms. Hogan, do we have anyone who has indicated that they would like to speak today?
No, Commissioner Hart, there are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. We will now continue with the next item on the agenda, which is my remarks. First, I'd like to welcome everyone to the September public meeting of the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission. During today's meeting, we will discuss the results of several safety investigations, get an update on Metro Rail's development of corrective action plans related to the Rail Operations Control Center, get other updates on the WMSC's ongoing inspection and oversight work, and vote on 2 resolutions that are being proposed to help streamline our operations. I would also like to note that Secretary Treasurer Farrar Dyke and the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission Finance and Operations Committee have successfully begun our first independent financial audit as required by the WMSC Compact. Dr. Meyer, do you have any opening remarks?
Yes, sir, I do. I want to make sure that alternate Commissioner Rush is joining us. Yes, good. First, I would like to provide an update on our extensive work regarding the Rail Operations Control Center. 2 weeks ago, the WMSC issued 21 findings as part of the ROC audit report issued to WMATA and available on our website. The detailed 50-page report clearly explains the safety concerns, how we identified them, and what Metro Rail management is required to fix. To ensure that this audit was complete and accurate, we spent months interviewing Metro Rail staff, reviewing documents and recordings, and conducting independent observations of the ROC. In an environment with a positive safety culture, everyone from frontline workers to the highest levels of management would feel free and obligated to raise safety concerns without fear of reprisal, and would be fully trained on and permitted to follow all procedures and checklists. That's why it was so important to speak with so many of the rail traffic controllers as part of this audit process and to provide so much specific detail to WMATA so that the safety issues can be fully addressed. Our interviews with 21 of the 26 certified controllers employed as of March 1st showed a consistent picture that was confirmed by reviews of audio recordings and through our separate safety event investigation work. To be sure that the controllers could speak freely and that we minimized any operational impacts on Metro Rail, we held these interviews in an off-site location at all hours of the day and night. Given the sensitive nature of some of the concerns, we also ensured that a female WMSC staffer was one of our interviews whenever we met with a female controller. We continue to engage with Metro Rail to ensure that the corrective actions they will propose in the coming weeks will fully address our ROC audit findings. For months, the WMSC has directed revisions to Metro Rail's separate corrective action plans tied to our ROC findings issued in December and May. Metro Rail has now made substantive progress on those plans, and we have approved 2 for implementation. One of the approved plans addressed the requirement that controllers have proper, complete, and recurring training on the use of emergency ventilation fans. The other addresses the requirement that Metro Rail implement additional protections to ensure third rail power is only restored when it's safe to do so. Our work in those areas now shifts to monitoring that implementation and assessing whether all required steps are met in the coming months. Even after plans are fully implemented, we will continue to monitor Metro's adherence to those protocols to ensure that positive changes remain in place long-term. As part of our ongoing collaborative approach to ensure Metro Rail fully addresses safety concerns in our report and guidance where necessary, I continue to be personally involved in regular discussions with Metro Rail leadership on the status of the ROC improvements. The WMSC's focus remains on the 25 findings issued over the past year that require Metro Rail to establish an environment with an effective and lasting safety culture. We at the WMSC have also been continuing our work on many other important areas. The investigation into the July 7th derailment near Silver Spring Station continues. Earlier this month, the WMSC participated in an after-action review hosted by WMATA that included Montgomery County Fire and Rescue. The WMSC is also resolving final aspects of other investigations, including a June 6th smoke event near Capitol Heights Station. We are ensuring that all information relied on for the investigation is complete and accurate. Identifying and addressing safety concerns as part of a cycle of continuous improvement is a key aspect of the Safety Management Systems, or SMS, approach that Metro will incorporate into its new Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, or PTASP. The WMSC has been working with WMATA to ensure that its PTASP is adopted and implemented with all required elements by the end of this year. The WMSC directed several revisions, and we have now provided approval to WMATA staff to present the final draft to the WMATA board and general manager for approval in a few weeks. I expect that we will present it to you, the commissioners, for your approval in November. As far as the public health emergency, the WMSC remains focused on the safety of our staff, Metro Rail riders, WMATA employees and contractors, and first responders. We encourage all riders to wear face coverings when in the system, and at all other times, you may come into close contact with others. This protects you and it protects others. This month has seen the reopening of all Metro Rail stations for the first time in several months. The WMSC has oversight for the safety certification process required before stations can reopen. Our staff reviewed Metro Rail's certifiable items list, which specifies the safety critical issues that need to be addressed before a project is complete, and completed other oversight work to ensure that hazards were addressed or mitigated prior to the Orange Line station's reopening. Safety certification is also required for other significant projects like the Silver Line Phase 2 extension into Loudoun County. We are working on part 1 of our pre-revenue service report regarding construction by the Metropolitan Washington Airport and its contractors. We have been communicating each of our observations with MWA and Metro for the process for more than a year so that they can be adequately addressed. The Airports Authority hopes to turn the line over to Metro's custody around the end of this calendar year. The second part of our pre-revenue service review will focus on Metro Rail's planning and preparedness to operate the line safely. Although Metro Rail has not yet set a target date for opening, the WMSC continues to see adequate staffing and training as a key concern. We are monitoring Metro Rail's implementation of its rail activation plan, which now includes monthly meetings that bring together many Metro Rail departments. Employees will need to be trained on their jobs in addition to familiarized with the new territory. Training and familiarization is also required for everyone who will be working in the new rail yard near Dulles Airport. Regardless of Silver Line service levels, the WMSC remains concerned about staffing in the Rail Operations Control Center. Metro Rail plans to launch a 4th operations desk in the ROC to support the Silver Line extension, which would help with some workload issues, but that requires significant staffing increases and an end to the turnover that we identified in the ROC audit, the staffing turnover. Staffing must be in place to operate the system in the safest possible manner. And of course, the WMSC must concur with Metro Rail safety and security verification report before the Silver Line extension can open to riders. So this concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Meyer, for that very comprehensive report. My kudos to you. I've said this before, and it bears repeating. Kudos to you and your staff for keeping this train, so to speak, running through the pandemic, because that's not an easy task, but you're still doing it without a hiccup. So kudos to you on that. So are there any questions for Dr. Meyer from any of the commissioners? Okay, hearing none. Let me move to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Today, we have one report covering a situation where an individual intentionally placed themselves in the path of a train. The report number is W-0044. Although by FTA regulations, this is classified as an accident, the events were not accidental. Since this situation presented no safety issues beyond those relating to the involved individual, we have placed this on a consent agenda. Does any commissioner wish to ask questions about this report? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adopt this report.
So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Rush. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Second by Commissioner Hall. I will now ask General Counsel Allison Foltz to conduct a recorded vote.
Thank you, Chairman Hart. Commissioner Hart,
Approve.
Commissioner Bob,
Approved.
Commissioner Contestable,
Approve.
Commissioner Farrar-Dyke,
Approved.
Commissioner Hall,
Approve.
and alternate Commissioner Rush.
Approved.
Thank you very much. The report is adopted.
Thank you for that, for getting the vote on that, and for moving to the next item, which is other safety event investigation reports that are up for adoption today. Mr. Jermaine Walker, our subject matter expert for track and structures, will present our first report. Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0045 covers a serious contractor injury that occurred at the Vienna station on May 1st, 2020. No one witnessed the event, and the contractor was unconscious when discovered around 9:30 p.m. That was approximately an hour and a half after work began. The investigation shows that the contractor was standing on an inappropriately constructed scaffolding in an enclosed portion of the pedestrian bridge where there were toxic fumes and dust. The evidence shows that the contractor was likely standing on a scaffold and support arm to reach a higher part of the wall for paint removal and grinding. Based on the injuries, the contractor's face struck the upper metal decking of the scaffolding during the fall, and the contractor's right side struck an adjacent support beam. Additional injuries occurred upon hitting the ground. The contractor was wearing a respirator at the time. Other workers removed the injured contractor's respirator, unzipped the contractor's outer garments, and asked the supervisor to call 911. The contractor did regain consciousness and was eventually diagnosed at the hospital with a broken collarbone. The investigation into this event identified several OSHA violations and other concerns. Metro Rail did not confirm that proper OSHA compliant procedures and safeguards were in place for this work on Metro Rail property. The scaffolding did not comply with multiple OSHA requirements. There were also no ventilation or exhaust controls in the enclosed area, which violated other OSHA requirements. The contractor was responsible for this work committed to reevaluating its work plan. This concludes my report on this investigation. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Let me ask, was there any indication of whether it was a slip and fall or overtaken by fumes, or just what was the causal event?
Honestly, based on what we have from the report, it could have been it looks more like it could have been a slip and fall, but we're not exactly sure exactly the full cause of what might have put this employee out like that, or a contractor.
Were you satisfied that the respirator was working properly?
That we don't know, but I could get that information for you. But it is good to know that he at least was wearing one and knew that that area would provide some difficulties to him for him to have a respirator.
So did this investigation result in any recommendations to help keep this from happening again?
One thing that came from it is that it also was determined Metro Rail will have to do more when it comes to contractors working on their property, as opposed to taking, for lack of a better term, a hands-off approach and just leaving everything up to the contractor.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from any of the other commissioners regarding this report?
I have a question.
Yes, please, Commissioner Farardike.
When working on scaffolding, don't they have to have some type of a buddy-buddy system? You said he wasn't found for over an hour and a half.
My answer to that question would be yes and no. Depending on exactly what he was doing during that time, it might not have called for him to be partnered up with somebody for that specific task.
Any further questions from any of the other commissioners? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt investigation report W-0045?
So moved.
Commissioner Bob moved to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Rush, second. I will now ask General Counsel Foltz to conduct our recorded vote.
Thank you. Commissioner Hart,
Approved.
Commissioner Bob,
Approved.
Commissioner Contestable,
Approve.
Commissioner Farardike,
Approve.
Commissioner Hull,
Approve.
and alternate Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. We will now move on to the next investigation report. Mr. Walker?
Sure. Investigation Whiskey 0046 involved a collision and derailment in the Alexandria Rail Yard on February 10th, 2020 at 9:32 a.m. The image you see here shows the striking train on the right and a contractor high rail vehicle on the left. As you can see in the picture, each had wheels that ended up 6 to 12 inches off the rails. The train would have been moving towards us in the image. The pilot of the high rail vehicle had asked for permission to return the other way on the track on the near side of the photo. The yard and the locking operator responsible for vehicle movement in the yard was watching a movie trailer on an electronic device in the yard tower at the time of this event. That distraction likely contributed to the interlocking operator not effectively managing multiple responsibilities. The interlocking operator gave the pilot of the high rail vehicle permission to access the rails at the yard grade crossing. The vehicle was being tested for approval to operate in the Metro Rail system. The testing crew did not conduct a job safety briefing. After accessing the rails and getting movement instructions from the interlocking operator, the pilot of the high rail vehicle reported on the radio that the high rail vehicle did not reach the intended signal and would have to return to the grade crossing. The pilot was told to stand by and remained in a position where the high rail vehicle was fouling the adjacent track. At that time, a 3000 series train coming into the yard stopped at a crossing. The train operator had a lunar signal and proper route toward track 20. The train operator saw the stopped high rail vehicle, but assumed that the lunar signal and a permission from the interlocking operator for the train operator to proceed meant the work unit was out of the way. The lead car of the train was moving about 10 miles per hour when it struck the high rail vehicle. 4 wheels of the train and all high rail wheels of the high rail vehicle derailed. The wheels of the 2 trucks on the high rail vehicle remained about 8 inches off the rail as it was wedged up by the collision. Damage to rail car 3205 included the trucks, a cable tray, and a cable tray bracket. Those involved in the event also did not properly coordinate power removal, did not follow proper radio protocols, and did not take action to prevent the collision. A lack of adequate supervision of interlocking operators within Metro Rail contributed to this event, including allowing for distractions like watching a movie trailer while on duty. Metro Rail has conducted a safety stand down for the interlocking operators and tower supervisors. The topics included proper radio communications, policies barring use of computers and electronic devices in a way that could cause distraction, and the procedures for movement of vehicles in the yard. The interlocking operator and train operator also received refresher training. We at the WMSC have planned additional inspections of yard operations, partly in response to this event. This concludes my report of this investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Just a couple of questions. What is a lunar signal?
That would be signifying to the operator that his movement would be clear ahead of him as far as that block, that particular block ahead of him. On the railroad side, it would be a clear signal. Here at Metro Rail on this system, it's a lunar signal or aspect, if you will.
And are there restrictions against cell phone use on duty?
Oh, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yet no restrictions against watching a movie trailer, or how does that work?
Well, unfortunately, when the cat's away, the mice will play. So pretty much nobody was really directly overseeing this individual, and this individual felt emboldened to look at their electronic device without purposes of work.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from any of the other commissioners?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please, Commissioner Bob.
Yes, have you assessed the cost of this incident?
No, we did not assess the cost in this particular incident, but if you allow us to get back to you with that information, we can certainly do that, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from any of the commissioners? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt investigation report W-0046?
I so move.
Okay, there's a motion to adopt. Is there a second?
I
Second.
second.
Okay, we have 2 seconds. I will now ask General Counsel Fultz to conduct a recorded vote. General Counsel Fultz?
Yes, and I'm hearing a little bit of echo. Commissioner Hart,
Approve.
Commissioner Bob,
Approve.
Commissioner Contestable,
Approve.
Commissioner Farrar Dyke,
Approve.
Commissioner Hull,
Approve.
and alternate Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you very much. The report is approved.
Okay, excuse me a minute. I'm experiencing a hiccup with my system of trying not to do this off of a hard copy. So I'm looking to see if I can find it. Okay, here we are. Thank you for that. And we will now move on to the next investigation report, Mr. Adam Quigley. Mr. Quigley?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Investigation Whiskey 0047 transpired on February 14th, 2020 at 17:09 hours. That's 5:09 p.m. when revenue train ID 909 struck a person who intentionally placed themselves in the roadway at Minnesota Avenue Station, track number 1. Once notified of the emergency, the ROCC controller quickly de-energized third rail power, placed prohibit exits on required signals, but failed to remove the automatic routing on Delta 9836 signal at the D&G junction. As a result, the automatic routing allowed revenue train ID 910 to receive a route towards New Carrollton and ultimately onto de-energized third rail at Minnesota Avenue Station, just behind the incident train ID 909. As the operator of train ID 909 performed the ground walk around looking for signs of life, the ROCC restored a section of third rail power under train ID 910 to move the train out of the affected area. During the process, third rail power was energized under the trailing car of the incident train ID 909, where it could have bridged the gap in the third rail, re-energizing the area where the train operator and customer who was struck remained on the roadway. The event involved procedural non-compliance and emergency response deficiencies that put employees and customers at risk. The investigation identified incorrect use of automatic signal routing and a lack of required radio announcements regarding the initial collision that could have prevented the operator of the misrouted train from entering the area where the power had been taken down. Metrorail does not use any automatic redundant protection features of the Advanced Information Management System to keep trains out of areas where power has been taken down. The AIM system is used, among other things, to control switches and signals and power to set routes for trains. The danger posed by the restoration of third rail power when the train operator and person struck were still in the roadway highlights the need for independent confirmation that it is safe to restore third rail power. The WMSC has issued a finding on this in May, and Metrorail is putting an interim administrative oversight measure in place while a technical solution is being developed. Following this event, the ROCC staff involved were not removed from service for post-incident testing as required. Metrorail only removed the operator of ID train 909 that was involved in the initial collision. The operator on train ID 910 was also not removed from service or taken down for the required testing. WMATA Safety Department was also not aware of this train receiving a route onto the dead rail or the potential dangerous power restoration until the WMSC notified them of the facts that we were able to identify through our own independent work. ROCC management did not include information about these aspects of the event in their reports to SAFE. And that's all I have for this report. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. And this is one of many examples that illustrates the importance of the rock work that Dr. Meyer talked about earlier in the meeting. So let's keep on pushing on that one, because it looks like there's a serious need to move the needle significantly, and we're doing that.
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions regarding this report from any of the commissioners? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt investigation report W-0047?
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner Rush moved. Is there a second? I will second it myself. Now I will ask General Counsel Foltz to conduct our recorded vote.
Thank you. Commissioner Hart,
Approve.
Commissioner Bob,
Approve.
Commissioner Contestable,
Approve.
Commissioner Farrar Dyke,
Approve.
Commissioner Hull,
Approve.
and alternate Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you very much. The report is approved.
Okay, thank you. We will now move on to the next investigation report by Mr. Richard David. Mr. David?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Our operations expert, Mr. Bruce Walker, can also help answer any operational questions at the end of this presentation. This investigation covers a March 14, 2019 event on the Red Line. In this event, a Metrorail customer who had been wandering the Fort Totten station for more than 2 hours used the platform in-gate to access the Red Line roadway. The customer began walking down the tracks towards Tacoma Station around 9:54 p.m. The CCTV shows the customer was walking in the relatively wide space between the two tracks for at least several minutes that the customer remained in camera view. Approximately 24 minutes after entering the roadway, the customer was struck by inbound train 173. The train operator informed the Rail Operations Control Center. The ROCC de-energized third rail power, and the train operator left the cab and entered the roadway to check on the person who had been struck. The train operator did not make a PA announcement to the passengers on the train before entering the roadway. ROCC notified DC Fire and Metro Transit Police, and the ROCC directed the operator of a train moving in the other direction on the opposite track to provide confirmation of the incident location. When DC Fire personnel arrived at approximately 10:34 p.m., they determined that the person had died. The station manager at Fort Totten was not notified about the collision until transit police arrived at the station shortly after 10:30 p.m. While the train operator was on the roadway, the train operator saw that passengers on the train had begun moving between cars using the indoors. When the train operator got back on the train, passengers said several other riders self-evacuated through side emergency door. Based on CCTV footage and Metro Transit Police information, 16 passengers self-evacuated. The first Metro Transit Police personnel on scene encountered 2 of those passengers on the roadway near the station platform at 10:33 p.m., approximately 15 minutes after the collision. When Transit Police and the station manager became aware of those customers on the roadway, the ROCC was notified, and the ROCC then de-energized power on track number 1 at 10:34 p.m. The remaining 14 passengers who had self-evacuated were still walking to the station platform. 59 passengers remained on the train. MTPD eventually led them off the train onto the roadway to walk approximately 824 feet to the station. One person reported a minor injury during the evacuation. The train was a 7000 series consist equipped with cameras, but there were no forward-facing video of the evacuation because the train was keyed down and power was de-energized. Had the train been keyed back up after power was de-energized, certain systems, including the public address system and video and data recording system, would have come back up and remained up for the duration of the event. The rail car involved was examined, repaired, and restored for service. This event highlights the importance of clear communications to customers and the importance of vigilance on and around Metro property. If customers, employees, or others had identified this person was wandering the station for 2 hours, it is possible that the fatal collision could have been avoided. Metrorail could also consider additional measures such as alarms or locks to ensure that only authorized personnel access the roadway through platform end gates. If communication to passengers had been clearer, it is possible that self-evacuation could have been avoided. Any type of evacuation on a roadway creates risk for customers. Self-evacuation, particularly in the dark, can pose additional hazards given unstable footing, the potential that some of all pieces of third rail could be energized, and the lack of any communications between the customers and the other trains, work crews, or the ROCC. It is extremely important to provide customers with accurate information and updates so that evacuations only occur when necessary for life safety reasons. This concludes my report on this investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David. And as an internal note, we're going to have to explore the connection. Mr. David's connection was intermittent from time to time. For me, I don't know how it was for others, but Ms. Hogan, we need to explore the robustness of our connections to make sure that we don't have intermittency like we just had.
Will do.
Mr. David, I'm curious about apparently from what you said, there are no locks on those end gates.
That is correct.
Okay, I guess there are probably good reasons for that when people need to get through them in a hurry, but I'm just wondering what can be done about that situation of end gates without locks.
I'll defer to Bruce for an answer.
Hello, Commissioner Hart. The end gates are locked on the complete ends of the train to stop customers from exiting the train or going to the roadway. But in between the cars, they are left unlocked, although they do have locking mechanisms to allow customers to move from car to car in the event of an emergency. There are signs that are posted on the doors discouraging or telling customers that they are not to walk between the vehicles.
In this
Okay.
case, the customer walked from using a platform end gate. And I think Chair Hart was asking about whether or not platform end gates are locked. In this,
That's correct.
I don't believe they are, but I don't know what a best practice is in the industry. Maybe you do, Bruce.
The end gates are typically not locked. They're not typically, they are not locked. There are areas beyond the platform that WMATA accesses on a routine basis. There is discussion possibly to put alarms on there, but those gates are accessed frequently, so they are not locked. But they do have a sign that says it says employees only, do not enter.
Thank you. You're correct, Dr. Meyer, that I was asking about the platform end gates, and I'm just wondering how much of a problem is it of people going unauthorized through the platform end gates?
It is a recurring problem that Metro has. It would be an educating of the customers that it is not safe to do so. Once you pass the end gate, there are multiple hazards to life and health. So it would be an educational campaign that needs to happen to inform customers that it's very dangerous to go beyond that end gate.
Okay, thank you very, very much for that. Are there any questions from any of the other commissioners for either Mr. David or Mr. Bruce Walker?
I do have a question
Yes, please, Commissioner.
and a comment as well. Passenger self-evacuation following an incident is an issue for all of public transit rail systems. And I'm curious as to, subsequent to this event having taken place, are we aware of any actions that WMATA has taken to address self-evacuation?
One note that came up in this report was when they reviewed the audio from the network video recorder on the train operator failed to inform the customers that they should stay on the place that it's the safest place for the customers to be. The train operator exited the train without informing the customers that they should stay on the train because there was an emergency condition. Short of that, there's not much that can be done to stop the customers from self-evacuating, other than, again, informing them, educating them that it is not safe to do so. When the customers evacuated in this case, power was taken down on track 2, that they were on, but power was still energized on track 1, and WMATA did send a train down on the other side to get a supervisor there. So the customers, unknowing to themselves, were putting themselves in harm's way.
Thank you. Are there any questions from any of the other commissioners? For either
Yeah.
Mr. David or Mr. Walker?
I have a question.
Yes, please,
Commissioner
Commissioner Contestable.
Yeah, according to the report, it looks like there's no corrective action plans that were taken or are planned by WMATA. Yet it strikes me that the operator could be refreshed on the procedures and the fact of needing to make an announcement before he exited the train. It could be a look-see into signage or an education campaign for exiting the platform by the end gate. Strikes me that there are some things that could be done. I'm puzzled by why there's no corrective actions in follow-up to that, particularly since this was a fatality.
There was no corrective actions. This was an unusual event as far as a collision with a person. Typically, it happens within the platform limits, and they are able to safely remove the customers because generally a car is on the platform. And in this instance, which is unusual, it happened approximately 900 feet away from the platform. There was not any corrective actions, but it is on my list to speak with the management at WMATA because of the self-evacuation and also just because of the way that the video recording system operated in this instance as well. And they weren't able to see the customers evacuate or see which door from the recording event that had happened. So this is something that I'm going to discuss with WMATA management on ongoing meetings.
And we'll also raise it with the chief safety officer.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. Are there any questions from any of the other commissioners? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt investigation report W-0048?
Also move.
Okay, Commissioner Hall's moved. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, Commissioner Farrar Dyke, a second. I will now ask General Counsel Foltz to conduct a recorded vote.
Thank you. Commissioner Hart,
Approved.
Commissioner Bob,
Moved.
Commissioner Contestable,
Approve.
Commissioner Farrar Dyke,
Approve.
Commissioner Hall,
Approve.
and alternate Commissioner Rush.
Approved.
Thank you. The report is approved.
Thank you, General Counsel Foltz. We will now take up the next agenda item, which is audits. Before I turn the mic over to Ms. Samara Singha to discuss audits, I want to make some comments to follow up on the rock audit report that we issued earlier this month. The safety issues identified in this audit must be addressed expeditiously. Among other things, our audit revealed a toxic workplace environment at the Rock that has resulted in low employee morale and high employee turnover, both of which are serious safety issues. A number of these safety concerns are similar to those identified in previous investigations by the National Transportation Safety Board and the Federal Transit Administration. This includes some findings that are similar to those identified when I was the NTSB chair during the NTSB's investigation of the fatal 2015 smoke accident near L'Enfant Plaza Station. The Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission has the responsibility, commitment, and authority to require Metro Rail to implement and maintain much needed safety improvements in the Rock to help prevent future accidents. And some of the reports we heard today were indicative of that. Our job is to provide an independent assessment of what must be done to improve safety, and Metro Rail's job is then to identify, develop, and implement effective ways to get that done. The WMSC will evaluate Metro Rail's corrective action plan proposals to ensure that they do address the problems, whereupon Metro Rail must implement and sustain the required changes. We will work with Metro Rail every step of the way to ensure, excuse me, that our mutual safety improvement goals are achieved. Excuse me. If all of those involved are on the same page and working collaboratively, rather than keeping their concerns and remedies siloed and tightly controlled within their respective departments, they will be more able to develop effective safety improvement ideas while avoiding potential unintended consequences. That teamwork can even identify safety improvements that are also efficiency improvements, which will make the safety improvements more sustainable. If no one else has any comments, we will get an update on corrective action plans from Ms. Samar Singh. Ms. Samar Singh, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Hart. As far as the Rail Operations Control Center audit, Metrorail has a few more weeks to finish developing and proposing corrective action plans for each of the 21 findings. Those must be submitted the second to last week of October for the WMSC's review. Our team is in regular communication with Metrorail, and we will ensure that any caps that we approve for implementation will address our findings when fully implemented. We will oversee that implementation, future closure, and then we will conduct oversight checks on closed caps over the following months and years to come. The WMSC has issued a total of 25 findings in connection with its inquiry into the Rail Operations Control Center. The WMSC issued 4 findings on the ROCC safety between December 2019 and May 2020. 21 more findings were issued 2 weeks ago in the ROCC audit report. The December and May findings have resulted in Metrorail submitting multiple revisions of proposed corrective action plans. The WMSC will only approve these proposed caps for implementation when the WMSC determines each of these proposals will produce the necessary changes in a manner in which they can be sustained long-term. The WMSC has now approved the proposed corrective action plans that address emergency fan activation and that establish additional protections to ensure that third rail power is not restored prematurely. These were among the findings that the WMSC issued in May of this year. Caps for the remaining findings from December and May that required fixing the dysfunction in the ROCC and eliminating uncoordinated remote manipulation of controller consoles are still under revision by WMATA at the direction of the WMSC. The WMSC also issued 2 other audit reports earlier this year. The Roadway Worker Protection Audit Report contained 11 findings. WMATA proposed corrective action plans for these within the required time frame this summer. We have approved or finalized or are finalizing approval of caps for most of these findings. Several others require a few more adjustments to ensure that they will fully address the safety concerns identified in the audit report. The WMSC has directed Metrorail to make revisions to each of these plans. WMATA is making progress on the findings from our earlier track maintenance and training audit. WMATA's actions recently led the WMSC to close the cap that addressed the need to have uniform, clear direction on conducting heat ride inspections when the outdoor temperature reaches 90 degrees. The WMSC has approved corrective actions plans for the other findings from that audit, and WMATA is in the process of implementing those changes. Looking forward, our safety audit of WMATA's elevated structures practices is currently underway. We have conducted a significant portion of our interviews and document reviews and plan to complete our scheduled interviews within the next week or so pertaining to this particular audit, the elevated structures practices audit. We will then make any final follow-up document requests and reviews and develop a final report later this year. We are also just beginning the process for the audit that will follow the elevated structures practices audit. And this next audit is our audit of the Metrorail's rail maintenance machines. These are all vehicles that WMATA refers to as Class 2 vehicles. Any that rolls on the rails that is not a train that would carry passengers. We plan to conduct our interviews related to that audit in November after Metrorail submits and we review an initial batch of documents. Are there any questions?
Thank you for that report, Mr. Marsing. Any questions from any of the commissioners? Again, I would like to repeat my kudos to the staff for being able to continue these activities in the middle of a pandemic. So way to go and keep up the good work. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Chair Hart.
We will now move to the next item on the agenda, which is resolutions. We have 2 resolutions on our agenda today. The first is a revision to our bylaws. The intent of this revision is to streamline, simplify, and clarify the bylaws so that we can continue to operate in the most efficient manner. Our original bylaws were adopted by the commissioners in March 2018 before any WMSC staff had been hired. Now that we have been in operation for more than 2 years, we are able to use our operational experience to revise our bylaws to better suit the needs of our organization. Commissioners have each had an opportunity to review these changes. Are there any questions about the bylaw changes from any of the commissioners? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt the bylaw amendment through resolution R-2020-08? Is there a motion to adopt?
Move that we adopt the bylaws changes.
Commissioner Bob moved. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, Commissioner Farardike, thank you for the move and second. I will now ask General Counsel Fultz to conduct our recorded vote.
Thank you very much, Chairman Hart. First up, Commissioner Hart,
Approve.
Commissioner Bob,
Approve.
Commissioner Contestable,
Approve.
Commissioner Farrar-Dyke,
Approve.
Commissioner Hull,
Approve.
and alternate Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you very much. The motion carries and the amended and restated bylaws are adopted.
Thank you. Our second proposed resolution today is an update to our Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA policy, again, to reflect our organization's staffing and operations. Dr. Meyer, do you have anything to add about this resolution?
Just that, as with the bylaws, the FOIA policy that we've been working under
David, you're muted.
Oh, my apologies, I clicked the wrong button. Our FOIA policy dates back to before we were certified by the FTA, before we had hired staff, before we had the experience of actually running our state safety oversight program. And so the updates that we're proposing to the FOIA policy just make sure that our internal process remains clear and that we can respond to any FOIA requests in the smoothest possible way.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer, and the commissioners have had an opportunity to look at this resolution. Are there any questions regarding the resolution? Hearing none, is there a motion to adopt resolution R-2020-09?
So move.
Okay, Commissioner Hall, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you for the motion and second. I will ask General Counsel Fultz to conduct our recorded vote.
Thank you. Commissioner Hart,
Approve.
Commissioner Bob,
Approve.
Commissioner Contestable,
Approve.
Farrar-Dyke,
Approve.
Commissioner Hull,
Approve.
and alternate Commissioner Rush.
Approve.
Thank you very much. The motion carries.
Thank you, General Counsel Fultz. That concludes our public meeting for today. Are there any comments, questions, observations that commissioners would like to make at this time before we adjourn the meeting? Hearing none, as a reminder to the listening public, you can always report any concerns through our website, wmsc.gov, through our social media channels like Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or by email. Our next public meeting will be held on October the 20th. The meeting will again be held remotely via video conference, and we look forward to seeing you and everyone who would like to attend at that time. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Farrar-Dyke, is there a second?
Second.
Any objections? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned.